So what do you make of this move and this decision by the government of Germany?
Gee, lots going on in Europe with vaccines at the moment, isn't it? Oh gosh. Look, they've come out and interestingly come out in front of the overall European regulator in this decision making and come up with the interpretation of the results so far that they've been provided from AstraZeneca, that it's not so much that there's any issue about safety or even that there's actually some immune response from the vaccine, but the interpretation that the numbers of people in the arm over 65 in the trial, so that means in the groups in the trials over 65, were not enough for them, from their point of view, to reach a thing called statistical significance, which means that the odds are that the results findings prove that it is effective. So there's been a bit of a stoush then, because in UK their interpretation was that it was, and that also that they were looking at other data about the immune response, that antibody levels and other things, and there may be things like T cell responses, which is another part of the immune system, were good, and as good in that group as in others. So look, at the moment, that's that is interesting how the politics of the way it's actually been interpreted in Europe. I think the thing for Australia is that we can sit back and watch this, and we've got our own independent regulator, which is probably the people have criticised it for being conservative, but I think we would prefer a conservative regulator in Australia, given where we are, and we can watch all this, get more data, and hopefully be able to make the decision, which is completely devoid of any other factors.
Okay, so just to simplify this for the folks at home, that they believe that the trial wasn't big enough, that there weren't enough people who were aged over 65 to take part in this trial.
Yeah, so essentially that's right.
And it hasn't given them an accurate picture.
Not enough.
Yeah, and it hasn't given them an accurate
picture. To prove it.
Yeah, okay. Are you worried about this, Doctor?
Oh, look, I mean, when we hear this, you're always going to be a little bit concerned. I'm less concerned in Australia because I feel that our processes have not been rushed, and we're not jumping to announcement. What worries me is about these sort of announcements ahead, a German announcement ahead of their own European announcement. I think from our perspective, we're in this great position where we can watch all this happen, but also understand, and the AMA has meetings with the head of the TGA, John Skerritt, and we know what he's like. He's a very, very level-headed individual, and their group is very, very level-headed, and they're just going to be sitting back and looking at this data. So I think from an Australian point of view, I think we should be just leaving all the machinations of what's going on in Europe, which it hasn't really showed them up in a great light, and let Australia do its bit in terms of the normal regulatory processes, and be reassured when the result comes out.
You've got to feel as though people are going to be spooked about this, though, right?
And that's what's really frustrating about what's happening in Europe. I think we're hearing all this stuff about, essentially sort of games being played with the getting supplies of the vaccine. And you look at it and you go, gee, there's a fight between European community and AstraZeneca, and this result comes out and you're thinking, what's going on over there? And it's the German independent regulator coming out in front of the European regulator when they're supposed to be a European Union. It is frustrating. The other thing is, as I said, over there, they're being pushed into making decisions over there in a rushed way, whereas Australia's is not. And I think that's where I feel we're in a different world, and we do need to understand that our decision making is quite separate from theirs, because we have the position that we're in, but also knowing, that we have this therapeutic goods administration, which is actually able to be able to sit back and do things properly and do the numbers properly.
Yeah. Okay. What about a little closer to home? The Australian government announced an extension of the popped travel bubble, should we put it that way, with New Zealand. It's going to be extended by another 3 days because those extra cases that have come out of Auckland. Do you support that?
Well, I'm extremely worried about the new variants because of their increased transmission, that the ability to infect. And that's why Queensland, when it had its UK cases, I think the 3-day lockdown was universally supported because of the concern that if it got out, they might not be able to put the lid on it again. And I think essentially that's what's being thought of at the moment. The concern is that if there are cases from from New Zealand of this new strain with the increased rate of replication, that whatever you do, you can't put it back in its box again. So look, we do understand we need to get that time to reset, make sure we're really safe from it, and then be able to go back to that bubble when the time's right.
It certainly feels as though we're going for elimination at the moment. Do you get that feeling?
It's not a matter. Well, the question is people keep on talking about this elimination aspect. I mean, our thing was to have no cases of community spread. That was actually the target, really, at the end. And that's been said by both government and all authorities, which is essentially where we want to be. The problem with these new strains is the ability to get to the point where you have no cases of community spread is really very difficult. I mean, in the UK, they're really having to have a lot of trouble closing it down despite a very strict lockdown at the moment. So it would be quite a sad prospect if at the last moment we stuff it up because a South African case or a UK case got out of the bag, and no matter all that we've done so far was for naught.
Yeah, we're a victim of our own success here, you could say it.
Well, the fact that we can go out there and enjoy ourselves at the moment is probably a positive thing at the moment. So
you're right.
Let's keep it that way.
Dr. Chris Moy, AMA Vice President, thanks for your time as always.
Pleasure.